The Floor Academy podcast is sponsored by Trelama, the trade labor marketplace, where businesses can find skilled trade labor, such as flooring installers, and where flooring installers and other skilled tradespeople can find permanent or project work. You can set up your profile at trelama.com, TRALAMA.com, or download the app from the Apple App Store or Google Play. And remember, Trelama is always free for skilled tradespeople. Welcome to the Floor Academy podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hedin, owner of Illustrious Hardwoods in Phoenix, Arizona. We are here to talk with flooring professionals from all across the country about the issues that matter to you. This week's guest is Scott Humphrey. Scott is the CEO of the World Floor Covering Association, or WFCA. After starting in his father's carpet mill at 7 years old, he eventually found his way as a sales rep for Shaw. From there, he was promoted to being in charge of hiring all sales reps for Shaw. The WFCA came calling about the CEO position, and after some interviews, he got the job. Now the WFCA is working on establishing the Floor Covering Education Foundation to elevate the level of installer that is in the industry and to bring installers and retailers together as partners. Listen in to learn what Scott thinks it will take to help bring respect back to our trade. Scott Humphrey, are you on the line?
I am on.
Awesome. Welcome to the Floor Academy podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Glad to be here. I know you've been trying to get with me for a while, and we've got a lot to talk about.
We do. You're a busy man and doing a lot of moving and shaking in the flooring world, so persistence pays off with leads or when you really want to interview someone. So
yeah, exactly.
Why don't we have you introduce yourself? Give us a little bit of your background, the broad overview of your career, how you got into the position you're in now, and what you're doing with that.
Sure. I'll take you all the way back. When I was 7 years old, my father, who was working for the Corps of Engineers, which actually is what brought me to the Dalton, Georgia area, he was helping to build a dam here locally, realized that most people that were making money were making it in the flooring industry. So he pulled all of his money out of retirement and decided he would invest it all in his own carpet mill. And I started working in that mill when I was 7 years old. I remember swearing to myself that I'd never work in the industry when I grew up. And here I am. So never say never is lesson one. But after college, I was a vocal performance major. I actually considered going into ministry for a while as a minister of music. Was not called to do that, and the only thing I knew was flooring. So the biggest building in Dalton at the time was Shaw Industries, and so I went and interviewed there and got a job as a sales rep. Spent a couple of years up in Maryland, Pennsylvania, Virginia, West Virginia. Came back and hired all the salespeople for Shaw for the next 5 to 7 years. Pretty big expansion there. Probably hired 1,000 people in the sales force over that period of time.
Wow.
Then moved into training. Then moved into leadership development and finally ended my career there as head of the Shaw Flooring Network. They're a elite group of about 2,000 dealers that had aligned themselves with Shaw. Got a phone call one afternoon. I think it was back in October of 2012, and it was from a headhunter who was looking for a CEO for the WFCA. And I just laughed and I said, well, I don't know of anybody, but I'll keep my head to the ground. And he said, well, I was thinking about you. And I said, listen, I've got it made. I've got a great job. There's really no reason for me to consider that. And actually, I take that back. It was not the headhunter. It was a friend of mine who knew me from my Shaw relationships. And he said, well, would you just consider it? And I said, well, just send me the job description and I'll look at it. And if I think it matches me, then I'll go further with it. I was about to turn 50 years old and I had made a list. I'm a list person. I had made a list of things I wanted to accomplish in my career before I retired. When I got the job description in, 9 of my 10 things were on the front page of that list. And I said, okay, I get it. I'll go for it, but there's no way they'll hire me. We went through a pretty exhaustive search process, and probably over the next 5 months, they finally said, you're the one, and brought me on board just over 7 years ago to head up as the CEO of the WFCA.
Okay. I mean, that's an awesome story. I'm glad to hear that you're making lists, setting goals, keeping track of things. I think that's a great system and brings a lot of value to guys. We talk about that a lot on here. And then to be given a position and then 9 out of 10 things are on it, that's,
Yeah.
I mean, how much better does a job get thrown in your lap? And obviously, like you said, you had to interview for it, but what a easy way to go in with confidence when you're like, look, I was going to do these things anyways.
Yeah, I remember getting the question because my interview for the WFCA was with the panel. I flew into Las Vegas. It was really odd at the time because Shaw was not part of surfaces, and so no Shaw personnel was usually there. And I kept seeing these people in the industry that I knew, and they're wondering when I'm there, and I can't tell them I'm there to interview for another position. And at the panel interview, one of the questions they asked me was, "What are you not good at?" And I'm brutally honest. I just said, "Listen, I'm not your financial detail guy." I said, I want somebody around me who's very strong in that area. I said, I understand it and I get it, but I don't want to be bogged down in the minute details of that and keeping me from doing what you're calling me to do. And I said, and I really don't know the installation side too well, so I'd like to have some people around me that understand that. And Tom Jennings was already there, and he had a pretty good grasp on what was going on with the installation side. He had a really good relationship with the Walkers and with Robert Varden. And
Okay.
Tom's a dear friend, and he kind of brought the two of us together. And over time, we were able to acquire key assets, as you know, of CFI and bring them under the umbrella of the WFCA, which was one of my goals. And one of the things I wanted to accomplish was to bridge the gap between retail and installation.
That's a huge one to me. I've been in the industry 5 years, and I think I've avoided working with stores because
Yeah.
I there's you get too many hands in the pot, and it's not an even split to me all the time, and I just go find my own work, and I think there's guys that are in that bucket, and I think there's guys that enjoy not having to go and do all the work and are willing to take a smaller piece of the pie, but I don't necessarily think they're always getting a fair piece of the pie. So I could commend you for that goal of wanting to branch this communication and this gap of it needs to be an equal partnership. It's not
It does.
that you can put an installer under your thumb as the store owner, and you shouldn't be putting a store under your thumb as the installer and holding them hostage either. Like you both need each other, and it's a symbiotic relationship.
That's right. Now, there's power on both sides. There's also weakness on both sides. I know a lot of retailers that really don't understand installation. And so in the selling process, they make promises that are unrealistic. I also know a lot of installers who are not qualified to be doing the jobs they're doing. And it's unfortunate that they drag down the good installers who should be making more money. I'm all for installers being paid what they're worth. I mean, listen, the reality is installation is like painting on a canvas. You make flooring product art.
Mm-hmm.
And so we should promote the trade that way. I'll tell you my biggest frustration, Kyle, is I've gotten into this. And the reason I've embraced installation so much, besides my relationship with Robert Varden and the Walkers and the knowledge that I gained along the way, is there is no doubt it is the Achilles heel of the flooring industry. It is the one thing we've never dealt with. We talk about it, but we've never fixed the problem. And the problem exists, yes, on the retail side and also on the installation side. We must find a solution that allows installers to see a career path, a way of making more money, of being differentiated because they have more knowledge, more certification, and being paid for that. It's in my crawl. That's something that I can't get away from. It's not easy. It's easy for retailers to blame installers. It's easy for installers to blame retailers, but somebody has to jump in the middle and say, hey guys, let's talk.
Yeah.
Let's have a conversation of how we can work together to make this thing viable for all of us, because retailers need good installers. And installers need retailers they know they can count on for business, especially when things slow down, but the right kind of business when things are busy.
Definitely. You've come out with an initiative, and you're partnering with the bigger names in the business. I believe there's Shaw's on board, Mohawk's on board. You're involving CFI. You're involving the WFCA. What is this training initiative that you're trying to get going?
Yeah, it's called the Floor Covering Education Foundation. We call it the Education Foundation because right now the focus is certainly going to be installation. It is, over the last 50 years, it has been the issue that has impacted the industry more than any other. In fact, we just had our 60th anniversary as an entity, the WFCA did, and I went back and researched all through the trade media what the biggest issues were impacting the industry. And every year, either one or two was installation. It was either not enough installers or the quality of installation. This is, again, that's from the retailer's perspective. And so I said, well, how long are we going to talk about this and not fix it? And the challenge is there have been people like the Walkers, Jim and Jane, who stepped up and said, let's help make it better. Let's train people. Like Robert Varden, again, a dear friend of mine, I have amazing respect for, who's had great success as an installer. But we've let other people tell the story of installation. And when the only story you hear is $99 or whole house free install, it doesn't do a lot to promote the trade. It makes it look like it's just something you have to do, that it's all about the flooring. I believe the flooring is only as good as the installation that puts it in. And I think they're forever tied, whether you want them to be or not. And so we've got to find a way to get the entire industry to embrace the initiative. And I saw a lot of pockets doing it. We tried it multiple times and could not do it by ourselves. So I finally said, listen, let's get the leadership in the industry together and get them to agree that it's an industry problem and it needs an industry solution. In fact, our tagline says, be a part of the solution. Everybody has identified this problem. Everybody's talked about it. Who's doing anything to fix it? So when we created the board of the FCEF, and I serve as the chairman of that right now, one of my goals was to get a good cross-section of the entire industry. I wanted installation to be represented there. I wanted all the major associations to be represented. So the NWFA is represented on there. The National Tile Council, Bart Bettig is on there. We've got Joe Yarborough from CRI. Just every product category you can imagine. We have major leadership from the major mills because they are the ones helping to fund this initially. But again, ultimately, for this to be a success, the whole industry will need to fund it, and the whole industry will need to get behind it.
Okay, and so, I mean, I think that's great, and you're trying to get everyone involved, you're trying to get everyone on board, and you're 100% correct that everyone needs to jump on the bandwagon and push this, because flooring is essentially a commodity these days, when in fact it's a luxury item. There's no reason that we can't live on dirt floors. They work just fine for a lot of the world still, and nothing's wrong with them. But,
so true.
Carpet's viewed as cheap here, and it's still technically a luxury item. There's no reason that you shouldn't be able to go and get paid as an installer to stretch in some carpet every day. But when
you know what, Kyle, the reality is some people are. I mean, if you look at Robert, he's a great example. He's had amazing success. He's been able to purchase land and property, and he's done that all because he was an installer who did it right. Mm-hmm. He didn't do cheap install. He was like you. You shared this story with me a little bit. I mean, the cheap business is always out there and you can do it, but is that what you want to be identified as?
Yes.
If you don't tell your story, and you'll hear me say this a lot, I talk a lot about leadership. If you don't tell your story, somebody else will tell it for you. And the problem in this industry is we've never told the reason why somebody should come into the installation trade and be a professional installer. And just the word itself, installer, and I use it a lot because it's what the industry recognizes, but these are industry artisans. These are professionals. They're not simply installers. They have the ability to take product, put it down, and make a room a room. That should be treated with respect and paid accordingly.
Oh, I love it. I love that you're calling it an artisan. I get really heated in a lot of the online groups now when everyone's, oh, my helper, my helper, my helper. I said, that's your apprentice. You're training them to replace you. Give them respect with a title, because a helper's never going to do anything but help. So I think the terminology definitely matters.
It does matter. I remember years ago going to the Disney Institute because I've been passionate about leadership for years. And I went down there, and the first thing I noticed is they call every one of their staff at Disney a cast member. Mm-hmm. They're not called an employee. You're a cast member, which means you are part of the show. So you need to know you're always on. You're being watched. What you do matters. And we've got to get that point across. It doesn't matter if you're in the store, if you're at the manufacturing facility, if you're on your knees and putting product in, you are part of the story. What you do matters.
100%. What is obviously you're trying to put together some like installation education, and I think that's great. Are you trying to incorporate any business education into that? Because honestly, I think we can get people trained up on how to do it properly, but if they can't be successful knowing their numbers and how to make sure they're profitable, what's the point? You got to understand both sides at least a little bit, or be able to partner with somebody. You said so yourself that like, hey, I'm not the numbers guy. Give me a numbers guy and I can do the rest.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's important that you understand the basics of business, how to read a P&L statement. You've got to understand if you're really making money. It's amazing to me the number of installers that will tell you how much they make a year, but at the end of the year, they really didn't make that. They had other crews that they needed to pay. They had expenses, and they hadn't figured all of that in. So they're not running their business. Their business is running them. And I think it's really important that part of the training talks about how do you make this into a business, not simply an occupation. And so, yes, I mean, I can speak to the CFI side. The CFI already does that in their training. There's a portion of their 5-week school where they bring people in that have never installed before, and they train them. You know, they've got the equivalent of 2-3 bedroom homes there with 2-foot walls, and they train them on how to install all different types of product categories. But also a portion of that training is dedicated to the business side, to understanding the finances, how to control your finances, how to stay above board, you know, how to know where all the money is going and keep track of that. That's important with whatever we do, and it will be part of the FCEF plan. Now, understand, the FCEF is not about training. That's not going to be the goal of the FCEF. Our goal is to scholarship those that do. There are a lot of great training entities already throughout the industry. As I mentioned, Bart Bedeca and his team have that. Michael Martin and his team at NWFA have that. We want to support what's already going on. We just need us all to be rowing in the same direction.
Okay.
And a big part of the focus right now, Kyle, is we've got to get new blood in. Because during the Great Recession, 2006, 2010, in that area, we had people that left the industry because there wasn't enough product to be installed. And they just didn't come back. And we're unique as an industry where this trade is not often taught in trade schools. So the way we get new blood in is you bring your nephew, your son, your cousin in to be your apprentice. Well, guess what? When those people left, they took that apprentice with them. And we lost 2 generations, not only the generation that left, but the one that they would have brought in behind them.
Yeah.
So we have to get new blood in. And so we're looking at every potential way. Obviously, ex-military, we're looking at Native Indian tribes. We're looking now at underemployed people through Goodwill. We're working on a program with Goodwill. And, of course, a big part of their focus is the business acumen and understanding that. So, but our job is to find them, to scholarship them, and to help them get placed. And those became important to us because when we were in D.C. Talking to national programs on apprenticeships, we found out that the people we're competing with in other trades, they guarantee that the education has no or low cost, and they guarantee job placement at the end. And because we didn't have a central entity over it, we didn't have the ability to make those same guarantees. So we're competing, we're behind the 8 ball before we start.
Yeah. Well, and that's one thing I've noticed too, is that I'm in talks with a guy in England to interview him. They've got a school that you can go learn floor covering at, and that's something that doesn't exist here in the U.S., is that you can't go to a floor covering school. I mean, CFI exists, and they do have their 5-week carpet course, but there isn't like local places you can go. You essentially have to go find a guy to teach you, but the kids these days aren't necessarily interested in learning a trade because they've heard that there's no money in it, and they've been brainwashed to want to go to college because you have to have a degree if you want to be successful. So how do we overcome that?
Well, part of the challenge of what you're mentioning is the people that they're relying on to train them never had formal training themselves. And so technology has changed dramatically to give us some upper hand on installation that we once didn't have. We have new tools that we can use. There are new processes and methods. But a lot of the people that are out there that the new people coming in are learning from, they don't have that knowledge base to pull from. I don't know if you remember a movie, it's probably way before your time, Kyle, but a movie called Multiplicity. It had Michael Keaton was the main actor in it.
Yep.
And the premise of that movie was that Michael Keaton was too busy. He was in construction, found himself way too busy, and he said, you know what, I'm going to do something about this. Well, he happens to be working at a guy's home that is experimenting with cloning. And so he clones Michael Keaton, and he becomes a second Michael Keaton, and he begins to do all the work for him, but he decides he's too busy too, so he clones himself, and that one is a little less like the original than the next one, and then that one clones itself. Each one, it's like making a copy of a copy of a copy. Each time it's less like the original. So each time you're relying on somebody who hasn't had training, each year that goes by, you're getting a lot less of what's out there than you realize. In fact, one of the things, and let's just throw it out there, that we often see is these new people that come into the industry that get a 5-week training will go back and work with crews who tell them, you don't need to know all that stuff, just do it the old way. And they get ridiculed for using the new methods because it's not widespread out there.
Yeah.
We got to get past that as well.
Well, there's the fast way and there's the right way.
And there's the right way.
So I just put a post in in a couple of the online groups last night. I spent 12 hours at a home yesterday letting my apprentice install a 180 square foot room by himself start to finish. Could I have been home by 3-4 o'clock? Yes. Would I like to have eaten dinner with my family and spent time with my kids yesterday? Yes. But did my apprentice need an investment from me? Yes, he did. And he felt great about it. And now he's in the home right now as we record this, because I don't usually record from my truck during the day, but here we are. He's got 120 square feet that he's working on right now. Am I going to be here probably 6, 7, 8 hours for a 4-hour job? Yes. But he's learning. And so we've got to let him do their thing.
Well, and you're building confidence into him that you can't get. Listen, I told you, I talk a lot on leadership. In fact, I have a blog that goes out every week called Leadership Live. And one of the biggest faults I see in leadership is the inability to delegate. We continue to do it all ourselves, which allows us to be very involved in what's right in front of us, but we don't have any vision for where we're going. And that means you don't have any chance to invest in yourself to be better by looking at new technology and what other people, by listening, like these sites that you're talking about where you've got other professionals coming on and saying, hey, have you done this? What do you do in this situation? That's an investment in you. And if you don't invest in you as a leader, you can't lead people where you haven't been. You have to be willing to go somewhere, train yourself, and then bring the knowledge back. And then you have to be able to hold people accountable, which is what you're doing, Kyle, by sitting there and watching them. It's one thing to leave them there and say, okay, you watched me do it. But to be giving hands-on feedback about how you hold the tools and the attitude that you have with the customer while they're at home, all of that matters. And it's vital to the success.
Well, and you've got to, you were a sales rep. You came back and you were bringing on the sales reps. You can't you've got to delegate. You can't control everything forever, and you're not going to be able to be part of a larger business if you don't let something go. Is it going to be done as well as you would have done it? Maybe not. But does it pass? Sure. Maybe they're going to do it better, but you can then go focus on something that you can do better. That's
right. I mean, listen, people that don't delegate tend to live their lives as managers. They just manage process, and they have to be hands-on involved in it. Leaders can't afford to be that involved in the everyday mundane, because your goal is to set the vision for where you want people to go. Listen, that same apprentice that you watched is watching you, and you're setting the stage for what's possible for him in the next step of his career, her career, by what you do. They love to see you stretch yourself and take risk, and they love to see you take a risk by allowing them to do it themselves, because that's exactly how they'll treat their apprentice when they have that opportunity.
Yeah. No, it's great. I had a 21-year-old kid on recently, and we talked about what, I wanted insights from Gen Z. Like, why don't you want to come and work hard? Why, what do we need to do to change? And it's that mentality of the baby boomers and Gen X, we're used to going into a workplace and like, especially like you have this image in your head in the trades, like if you screw something up, the guy's just gonna like yell down your throat at you, and that's the way it is, and that's okay, and you can't cry and you can't say anything. You just take it like a man, and then you go and do what you were yelled at about and get it done.
Yeah.
No one responds to that.
No.
No one wants to work for that.
Well, and there was a generation that did respond to that, and unfortunately, the people that responded to that grew up thinking that's the way you bring down to the next generation. Each generation is different, as you said. In Gen Z, they want to be more socially active. They want to be involved in things that they think have a lasting matter, some kind of legacy involvement. And so you have to adapt the way that you lead, and that's what great leaders do. They adapt their style to the people that they're managing. Listen, if you, as I'm sure the way that you dealt with the apprentice who's doing the job for you today allowed them to be better at what they do. But if you had a different apprentice, you might have had to deal with them in a whole different manner. Some want direct talk. Some you have to give them a visual picture of what you're talking about. But each of them has the same ability to succeed. We just have to adapt our style of leadership.
I mean, it's such great stuff, and it's just a matter of we've got to get out of our installer head, or even out of our retailer store owner head, and we've got to go and look at the other side, and you've got to figure out how to get everyone working together to build each other up and kind of make it all work. So you mentioned that you're kind of going to be it's the Floor Covering Education Foundation, FCEF, correct?
Correct.
Okay. It is going to be putting out scholarships, and those are going to be good to go take the CTI or go to an NWFA class or go to a CFI class. When is that kind of coming into effect? When can people apply? Where will they go to apply? Like, what's the timeline on it?
I wish I had a direct timeline for you, Kyle. What I can tell you, we had a board meeting. It was supposed to take place yesterday, but we had an illness of one of the key players, and we were not able to do that. But we are still actively involved. I think a lot of people think because of the coronavirus, everything slowed down. But as I shared with you earlier, I've got retailers that are telling me the biggest thing impacting their success right now is the lack of professional installation. And so if the need has ever been great, it's great now. We may go through these up and down cycles for the next year where we shut down and then we open back up. And I think every time we open back up, you're going to have this great demand. And so we've got to continue to find the solution, even while we can't have face-to-face interaction and contact. We have an interim director, Steve Abernathy, a good friend of mine, also the CFO of the WFCA, and he is doing all the background detail work to make sure that we become a 501c3 tax-free organization. And so he's doing all the legwork that allows us the time to make sure we find the right director to come in. We're looking at what type of director to bring in, because we don't want to hire somebody who's a fundraiser if we can find a different way to fund this. If we can fund this through an industry-wide effort, then you don't need a fundraiser. You need an implementer. You need somebody to make it happen who can develop relationships with trade schools and guidance counselors at high schools, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. So we're actively looking at what that person has to be like, but all of that will be determined on how we play out through the coronavirus. I would tell you that our goal would be to have an active full-time director by the end of this year. However, we are not waiting. We're already in conversations right now. I'm sure the other training entities are. I know that Robert with CFI is looking at 3 other major initiatives right now to bring new people into the industry. I shared one of them with you at Goodwill, which has the potential to be a nationwide program. We're working with a retailer in a rural area right now. I won't mention his name because it's not that finalized yet, but I can tell you he's looking at moving forward in the next few weeks at going and finding his own people and then working with a major manufacturer and CFI to develop a program, and then he will apprentice those people and they will go to work for him. Quite different than a program that might be generic that anyone can go to. But if the retailer goes and does the legwork, we're willing to help them train that person so that they have loyal workers. The difference is they get to claim that person. If you go through the 5-week program at CFI or some other industry program, at the end of it, you may be open to anybody coming in and picking you.
Yeah.
But with we realize everybody's not in a major metropolitan area, so that model doesn't work for everyone. So we're looking at different models. We're working with the Cherokee Indians in the eastern band of the Cherokee Indians in North Carolina, they have a network called the Terra Network throughout all the Indian reservations. And one of the things many people don't realize is that each Indian reservation is typically known for something. So one of them may be known for plumbing. And if you want to be trained in plumbing, then you go to that one and you come back and live on your reservation and you work in that area. We're working with the eastern band of the Cherokee Indians to try to develop a school up there so that we can make them known for flooring installation. And they would become the go-to in the Terra Network in the Indian reservations for flooring installation. And so we're open to every model right now. We're not trying to say there's one good one. We want to use what the industry's already doing. Again, we just want to make sure we're all channeling that effort in the same direction so that we can bring more and more people into it. I will say this, Kyle, to me, one of the biggest challenges we have is marketing the trade. So we talked about this, that if you're not telling your story, somebody else is. And right now the story that they're hearing about installation is probably not good.
Yeah.
So we think it's vitally important. We have a very good marketing committee based off of our board and some outsiders who we brought on who are very passionate about telling that story and making sure that we have information to get in front of guidance counselors and trade schools. In fact, we're working with some of the local schools here in Whitfield County to potentially even train installation in the high schools this year. And we'll know more about that, but it looks like it's very promising. And so if we can get the models out there that we can then duplicate throughout the country, we have a lot greater opportunity for success quickly than we do just trying to find one model and make that work everywhere.
No, I think that's excellent. You can't put all your eggs in one basket. You got to find multiple ways to make this happen and make it work, especially if you can get into some high schools again and bring trades back there. I always, even as a kid, I didn't understand having college pushed, I had wood shop, and if I wanted to, I could take auto, and there was welding and electrical, and I had options available to me that just aren't there anymore. And it's crazy. Mm-hmm. Not everyone's a brainiac and meant to go and get a degree in business or become a doctor. Some people really truly enjoy working with their hands. That's what they were made to do. And so why not encourage that, especially at a younger age? Is there?
Yeah,
go ahead,
Cal. I'll just if I can expand on that. One of the things that I think we have failed at as a country is this belief that if you don't go on to get a college degree, you're a second-class citizen. I don't know where it came from, but I do know it became prominent. And I want us to get to the place again that when a professional installer, a professional artisan goes to a neighborhood party and somebody says, "What do?" You proudly say, "I'm a flooring artisan." We shouldn't be embarrassed by this trade. It's vital. It's important. Listen, if you need a college education, you get it. Fantastic. That's great. I encourage it. I encourage you to continue your education, whether you do it through college or through a trade. But whether you go to one or the other really is up to the skill set that you're passionate about, mm-hmm. right? And so I look at people that don't go into works that they can do with their hands because they've been told you can't make money there. I don't think that's true. I think all of us have people we rely on. I've got a person who works on my cars. If I have a problem with my car, I call this person. He's gracious to get me in. He knows I'm often traveling, so he gets to me quickly. The last thing I care about is whether he has a degree. I care about his expertise. I care about the testimonials I get from other people that say, "You're with the right guy," or "The guy that told me that's who I needed to go to." That's what really matters, and we've got to begin again to tell our story to make sure people take pride in the profession, and marketing is going to be a vital part of that. At the CFI convention last year, we videotaped several different people from different generations telling their story. And it was just something I was passionate about, that we would get the stories of these people that are having success, have had success, telling how that started, how they got where they are, and the bumps that they had along the way, with the goal of creating a video, which we're now refining to get in the hands of guidance counselors at high schools so that they can tell people early on, this is a viable option for you.
No, I think that's great, because it's funny. You can tell someone you're a plumber and electrician still, and it's not as frowned upon. But the minute you're a flooring installer, it's not grandiose. And it's sad because there's, okay, look, I'm just putting in some LVP today that clicks together. Is it rocket science? No. Could the homeowner do it, especially in the room we're doing? Probably. but there's some skill involved in knowing how to make sure it's done right and stuff. But then when you get on the other side of things, up on the guys that are doing sand and finish work or custom bathroom installations for tile and things like that, that truly is an art form, and it deserves to be respected and paid as such. And so for people to frown on it like, oh, you're just a flooring, it does not make any sense to me.
It does not. But again, we've allowed it to get there. I mean, one of the things that we're doing now is trying to get the independent flooring retailer to embrace the DIY customer. Now, let me explain that, because that sounds contrary to what we're talking about. One of the things I believe is that if you get the DIY customer into your store, you can swing them over to full service. The problem is, because many retailers won't offer any DIY, they never get the opportunity to do that. So they just turn people over to a big box store where they buy it. One of these retailers said, I love the idea. He said, I'm going to get T-shirts for all my people that say, we fix your DIY.
No, I love it. It's one of those things. I was going to take a move out of the Home Depot playbook when I finally get my store open, and I'll offer classes on Saturday mornings. They do. How about I offer a better class that actually teaches you proper installation techniques and how to pour some self-level or patch things. And what I figure is most people will come in, say, man, this sucks. It's hard. I don't want to do it. I'll just pay you.
Exactly. That's brilliant. Yeah, and imagine learning from somebody who's actually done it.
Correct. Look, the Home Depot guy learned in the back on a video probably. Like, he's never actually installed flooring. He's 19, 20 years old probably. So, I just wanted to interject for a minute to let you know that Preferred Flooring is now the exclusive distributor for Stubby flooring tools in the USA. The Stubby Mini Cove and Lino Cove are a must-have in the toolbox if you're a resilient installer. Cove floor covering should be supported by a solid backing, and traditional rollers don't allow you to roll the entire radius of the cove. Stubby rollers feature a dual radius profiled head to ensure full lateral pressure contact during the cove forming. It helps to eliminate the notorious cracks at the cove due to insufficient seating of material to the cove stick. Visit www.preferredflooringmi.com to use coupon code LEARN to get 10% off the Stubby rollers and join Preferred Flooring in setting the standard one installation at a time. If you want more information, email info@preferredflooringmi.com. I've always been of, like, I'll give you all the information. I'll tell you how to remove your own tile. I'll tell you how to take out your carpet. I'm not going to hide anything from you. If you want to save some money and put some sweat equity into your house, be it. Like, it doesn't bother me, but most people are going to say, oh, that's hard. I don't want to do it. I'll just pay you. Like, I see why it's expensive now, and that's okay.
Well, and Kyle, the reality is, can you do it? Yeah, maybe. Will it look okay? Maybe. You got a lot of risk involved with that, but there's subfloor issues and things that you don't want to have to mess with, and the professional installer knows how to do that. Listen, you probably know, Kyle, we're involved with a magnetic floor, which is very easy to install by yourself, but we recommend that it's always installed professionally, because if you have that subfloor issue, no matter how good the technology is, you're going to pay for it for every subsequent install.
Yes.
Why not get it done right the first time by a professional installer that knows what they're doing?
I agree. The warranty will hold up better. It's going to be on them and not you.
Exactly.
And that's a better position to be in. So, are you working with any of the major players to have the manufacturers bring training back in any aspect? Like, I know from what I hear, like, you can go look at Rowland Thompson's office wall, and it is covered in training certificates from who knows how many manufacturers and other certifying bodies. But now there's very little training being offered, and so is part of the foundation's work going to be to get the manufacturers to start offering training again as well?
Yeah, it will be, Kyle. I think that's part of the problem, though. I would tell you the other part of it is that certification doesn't have value. So unless we start paying people more for getting the education, eventually people don't get education. There's no need to. It just takes time out of their pocket money that they would be making for actually being out on the job. I think we've got to create, again, by telling the story, we've got to create credibility and certification again from the manufacturer, but I really think that's where these associations come in. NWFA has done a really good job with their badges of helping people understand that more knowledge is less headache for you in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want people, and I've told retailers this for years. I said, why don't you sell your installation? They said, well, we do offer installation. I said, no, why don't you have an A and a B crew? And your A crew has more experience, and they'll probably do it quicker, and you'll have less headaches, and it costs a little bit more. But we also have the B crew, and they're trained as well. They're certified as well. They just don't have the same level of certification. And if you have an A, B, and a C, almost every time they'll pay up for the B. They'll almost never want the person who doesn't have, and we have crews that are not certified, but we understand they're very good at what they do. Well, they're going to pay more because they want the less headache. They don't want to have to come back to you, especially in today's day and time where the more interaction you have with people you don't know, physically, the more dangerous it is. I may have mentioned before, Kyle, I was on another call, so if I repeat myself, I apologize, but I had this call with these 8 retailers, and they were telling me that their close ratios right now are upwards of 80%.
Holy cow.
Yeah, because people that are coming in don't want to shop multiple stores. They want to make the decision with you. So if you can get them to come in, they're more than likely. And they said, well, normally we're 40% on a good week, but now we're at 80%. And so let's tell them the right thing up front. And by the way, the product's only as good as how it's put in.
Yeah.
And what people don't, it doesn't matter if you're a subcontractor or not. To the customer, you're an arm of that entity. And so whether you are owned and employed by that retailer or not, to the customer, you are linked directly to that retailer. So if you don't do your job well, then it's a reflection on them. So the retailers they should be forcing this idea of certification. They should be telling people, and they do that by paying them more for being certified. Incentivize people to get the education.
I would love to see that, and I think it should happen. The scary thing is that I think there's retailers that don't even know the certifications exist. There's installers that don't know the certifications exist, and there's, like you said, they don't have any value. I see it all the time in the online groups that, people are like, why would I do it? Why would I do it? And it's... My sell is that it's only worth what you make it worth, and that's it. It's sad that I have to put value on it right now. I think you're right.
Yeah.
But for me, it's an instant marketing tool. I am the only CFI certified hardwood and laminate one installer in the greater Phoenix area. That's 4 million people.
Wow.
There's some carpet guys. There's a couple of NFIC carpet guys. There's a couple of CTIs for tile, and there's some NWFA guys. But there's only one hardwood and laminate CFI guy in Phoenix, Arizona, and it's me. So, yeah, the closest one's 75 miles north. So,
well, what a great differentiator for you, Kyle. What an investment. So that investment should be worth something. You should be able to promote yourself with that credential, and then we need to tell the story of why that credential matters.
That's exactly it, and that was the selling point to me. But even if there was 10, I'm still one of 10 out of how many installers in this, top 10 metropolitan city.
Exactly.
So it does have value, but you have to find that value and sell it yourself. You have to market. And that's, installers lack in that aspect, I think, of that. They're very good at the technical skill. But that's why I think that business education is important, because you've got to learn how to market yourself. You are a salesperson, it doesn't matter that you're an installer. You are a salesperson every day, all day long.
Yeah, that's where I see a lot of them miss the mark, is on the relational side, because the reviews that you get are usually based relationally as much as they are by the quality of the work. And so if you get bad reviews that negatively impact your future business, oftentimes it has nothing to do with the way you did the job. Mm-hmm. It's simply a reflection of the way you interacted with your customer base, whether it be residentially or commercially.
Yeah. Man. So let's see. We've got.
We need days, Kyle, not hours. We need days.
Yes. Always. What do you see installers really needing to do besides wanting to step up and wanting to take the training when they don't think they need it? What's your sell on why installers need to go and get certified?
I'll tell you, let me answer the first question first. What do they need to do? I think they need to make their voice heard. And you do that by being a part of an entity like a CFI or NWFA or NTCA, whatever it may be. But listen, I'm a vocal performance major by trade, and I can tell you that anytime you watch an awards show, let's take America's Got Talent, which I actually auditioned 4 years ago. You go on there, generally you'll see a solo artist, but if they make it to the final round, you'll always see that they have a choir backing them up. Why? Because we hear more voices together differently than we hear a solo voice. And your voice is louder when you combine it with other people. Installers need to combine their voices and say, listen, we want to be part of the solution as well. We don't want somebody giving the solution to us and we simply embrace it. We want to be part of the solution. It's why I was insistent that we had to have an installer on the FCEF board, not only on the board, but on the executive committee. And that's why Robert Varden sits on there, to be the voice of the installer, to make sure that your voice is heard. I think you drive this by doing the quality of work that makes people request you based on quality, not based on quantity. And I think that's important. You need to develop a relationship within your space, whatever that space may be, in your case, the greater Phoenix area, so that people are willing to pay the price to have you. Mm-hmm. I've got a board member who is a phenomenal wood inlay installer. He's amazing. He travels all over the world, and I've seen some of his work, and I'm stunned. And I said, how much do you charge when you go out and do your work? He said, if they ask me that question, he said, I'm not the right installer.
I love it. That's the best answer.
Well, you want to get your reputation to the point that you have the right to answer that way.
Yeah.
So you do that first by the quality of work you do when you're being paid little. If you still do that quality of work, I promise you this industry is going to catch up with you, and we're going to make it where you get paid right. In fact, I had a conversation with another major manufacturer. So you mentioned some of the ones that are already financially supporting us, and we're reaching out now even beyond that and seeing if others will bring money into this initiative. And he said, well, I've got a crazy idea for you, Scott. He said, what if we, rather than scholarshiping people to get training, what if just the ones that are trained, we supplement their pay? What if we just pay them a little bit more because of the work that they're doing? What if we use our money that way? Now, I'm not telling you that's a viable solution, Kyle, but I'm telling you I love the way people think when they think outside the box. Mm-hmm. And here's a guy saying, there's no question, they're worth it. We got to find a way to make it happen. If we can't get the industry to do it, maybe we do it for the industry. I don't know that that's a viable solution, but this was a major manufacturer calling me on a weekend to say, hey, I've been thinking about this. What about this idea?
Yeah, no, that's definitely outside the box, and I like it. I'm with you. I don't know that it's viable, but it's creative for sure, and that's what it's going to take. We're going to have to get out of the norm to really solve this. What can installers be doing in their local area? You know, you said you got one guy that's trying to set up his own training program in his area as a retailer. What do installers need to be doing in their areas, in your opinion, to help fix this? And you know, I'd love to see guys getting together and talking shop after hours and encouraging each other and going over methods. And it really, I think it would go back to the old school of where Jim Walker was when he was like, hey, we need to get together and we'll certify ourselves and then we'll spread it from there.
Yeah, listen, I've often told people how much I admire what Jim did, because Jim, you don't do what Jim and Jane did to make money. You do what Jim and Jane did because you have a passion for the trade. And they did. The first thing I would say, Kyle, is don't do it alone. There's too many resources out there available to you. The person I shared with you that's doing it locally in the smaller demographic, he called a major manufacturer and combined himself with their elite program. And he said, listen, here's my idea. And they loved it. And they said, well, we've got in-house installers. We'll send ours out for a couple of weeks to get you started, and then we'll connect you with CFI because we have a relationship with them there. And they can come in and teach their program. On the backside of that, then we'll add business classes to that and professionalism classes to that. And through that, we just develop this course. Listen, that doesn't have to be started by a retailer. That can be started by an installer who realizes the best way to leave a legacy is to create something that will outlive you. That means you have to pass your knowledge along. You can't take that knowledge with you. Listen, if I die and I've not done anything that's worthy of remembering, I simply died and I took up space while I was here. You have the opportunity to invest your knowledge in another human being, and that human being will pass it on to one or two more. My kids, I introduced them to an old movie that came out, I think, in 1999. It's called Pay It Forward. It was about a young kid in L.A. who's challenged by a social studies teacher to create a project that will change the world. And so he creates this idea of pay it forward, where you do something good for a person. When they try to pay you back, you say, no, the way you pay me back is you do something good for 3 other people without asking for anything back. And it becomes this, it's like covering the whole world. People start doing good for no reason. Mm-hmm. That's what we've got to do. We got to start questioning who gets the credit for it. Listen, WFCA got involved in this not because we wanted to raise WFCA's banner and fly it back and forth. We did it because nobody else was combining the voices. And somebody needed to step in and say, hey, we could use you and we could use you, and let's all come together on the same page. And let's quit talking about this for the next 50 years and let's fix it and be a part of the solution. So I would tell them to have that mindset, to be a part of the solution, to get together with some other installers and say, what can we do to bring in the next generation, to pass along our legacy of what we know and what we've invested in.
No, I think that's the best thing, is everyone always talks about, oh, we don't get paid enough. Oh, there's no installers. Oh, this, oh, that. Get up off your butt and go do something about it instead of talking about it.
Yeah. Words are cheap. Actions change. In fact, one of my leadership things, I talked about what people believe. And Dr. Albert Moravian is a psychologist who teaches at UCLA, or he did when this research was released. And he was talking about what people believe in you. And he said 7% of it comes from the words that you say. 38% of it comes from the way that you say those words, or the tone of voice that accompanies it. So I can say, I'll do this with you, Kyle. I'll say you're okay, but I'm going to say the same words. I'm just going to say it 3 different ways by changing my inflection of voice. So you could say, you're okay. You're okay. You're okay. Mm-hmm. 3 different meanings, same words. But what he found out that was amazing is 55% of what people believe about you comes from the action that accompanies the words and the music. It means if you don't act on it, you really don't have the opportunity to impact anybody. It's got to be about the action.
Yes. No, I couldn't agree more. If we're not out there doing something and representing ourselves in a better light, then we're not doing anybody any favors.
True. Like what you're doing here, Kyle. You've got a full-time job, but you're taking the time to do this blog. You're not just investing in you and the people right around you. You're investing in the whole industry. You're making an investment that certainly will be talked about long beyond your influence. And so that's what we need more people doing. And I love these channels that are created on Facebook where installers talk to each other, or social media. Right now, obviously, we can't connect face-to-face because of this plague, this virus that's on us. But we can still share best practices. And that's, until we can meet face-to-face, that's what we should be doing. Question somebody if you don't have the answer. Go to the people that might know and ask them, what would you do in this situation? And if you have knowledge to share, freely share it. Don't hoard that to yourself, because, again, if you take it with you, you have no legacy.
Yeah, and that's a problem I see. Is I think that that baby boomer Gen X mentality that was taught in the trades was, this is for me to know. You don't get to know it. Like, I'm going to teach you just enough to be able to help me, but I can't show you all the secrets, because then you'll run off and you'll go out on your own. And we can't have that. But that's led to the downfall, because nobody knows how to do it right, and those skills are dying off.
Well, and that's the thing. If you're going to be competing with somebody, don't you want to compete with somebody who does it right?
Yes.
I mean, do you simply want low-cost, cheap labor coming in and simply doing it? Because if that happens, it hurts everybody. But if you're competing with other people who do it right, then they're going to charge right for it too, which allows all of us to raise the bar from a pricing standpoint. The old statement, a rising tide raises all ships, has never been truer than in this situation. We need to do what's best for all of us, not worry about simply us, but in doing so, it actually benefits the whole entity. It benefits the whole trade. And so we've got to start investing and doing something. I love your action scenario because we've got to be doing. We can't simply talk about this anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I mean, it goes back to the same thing of, what if we don't train them and they stay, but what if we train them and they leave? Like, which situation do you want to be in? They both suck. But
Yeah.
training them and letting them leave is the far better option because, like you said, it should raise the entire industry up. There's always going to be hacks. Don't get me wrong. There's always going to be the lowballing guy. There's always going to be the, hackety hack that walks in and throws it down and charges a couple bucks. Like, you're not going to get rid of that stuff, but you can make it more apparent that people know that's what they're getting when they get it if you can bring respect back to the trades and you're a part of that solution.
Well, and Kyle, honestly, what you're talking about, you need some of the hacks, right? Because that's what they compare us to. That's how you know what a professional is, when you see somebody who's not one. And so it's always going to exist. We don't want to promote it, but what I can tell you is, like the relationship you're building with your apprentice, by treating them right, by spending the extra hour and actually missing a dinner with your family, you're creating a loyalty that one day, yeah, they may be your competition, but let's say they get too busy and they have a job they can't do. Guess who they're going to call?
Yeah, exactly.
We always look at what could go bad from this. We don't think about what could go right. But listen, when you treat people right, it does pay back. It does come back to you, and it will in this case too.
I hope so, and I hope I can inspire other guys. I was getting ragged on for letting them take 12 hours, and they were like, "That's a 3-4 hour job, like 5 at the most." I'm like, "Who cares? He's got less than a year experience. Like, what do you want?" Not everyone is Speedy Gonzalez.
Right, and it's the level of investment, right? So if you're only willing to invest 5 hours, you only get to pour so much knowledge into it. But if you're willing to invest 12, you get to pour that much more knowledge into it. It's not simply about time, especially when you're learning. We rarely learn fast.
Mm-hmm.
We learn through experience. We learn through repetition. And those things simply take time. I can guarantee you what took him 12 hours yesterday would not take him 12 hours today.
Correct. Well, we'll find out. I hope not.
Yeah, we'll know. I want to hear back on that.
Oh, no, he's a good kid. If he puts up with me, I can tell you he's a good kid. Anything you think we've missed here? I don't know. I don't think we've exhausted the topic, but I don't think
we can have a follow up on this. This is a lot of good information, and thank you for giving me a venue to share my passion. I've done almost everything in the flooring industry but install, but I can tell you there's no occupation that I respect more than installation. It's the reason that the WFCA board stepped out and did something a lot of people question. When we acquired those key assets of CFI, people thought, why would a retail entity focus on bringing installation under our arm? Because somebody has to elevate that trade in the way people respect it, and it has to be done from someone who's already in the industry. So together, as I always say, together we're much better than we are apart.
Definitely. Well, and you guys, you're working with the team at Tice to do the Installer of the Year competition, which I think is huge. It gives some, as it continues to grow, it was bigger last year than it was the first year it came back. You're bringing awareness to the craftsmanship that can go into these things, and that you're making it sexy to be an installer again, and I think that's great. So is there any news on that, on the Tice situation and what's going on? We're doing Installer of the Year again? Is all that's taking place?
Definitely doing it again. And listen, if you talk about my vision, we'll need another blog for that. But I envision those competitions face to face all across the United States. I envision a time when the person that wins Installer of the Year in any product category is a superhero. And it's already that way in some other trades, and I think we're going to get it there with this. I appreciate, again, Robert Varden's vision and passion for that, but we're excited and could not do it without the awesome partner that we have in Tice, and Dana Teague and Dana Hicks and the team there. have been phenomenal to us. But if anything, we become more visible every year. We have to be back in that corner because the noise it takes to do what we do.
Yeah.
But when I go back there, I'm so inspired by the crowd, by being up on that catwalk and looking down at these professionals doing what so few can do, at least at the level they can do it. So I can tell you that thing's going to do nothing but grow.
Yeah, no, there was quite a few people there this last year. That was my first time to Surfaces, and we talked for a little bit there. That's when I initially brought up doing the interview, and I was walking around like a kid in a candy store. I couldn't believe all the things that I saw there, and like the opportunities. And I know it's mostly set up for retailers, but there is advantages to going as an installer only and seeing the new products coming out and talking with the manufacturers and the tool companies. And you've got the installation competition going on now, and there's a lot.
Just think about, you got Jim Walker, and I don't know any person who has more basic knowledge of the right way to install, sitting there grooming new people coming in, sharing his wisdom and knowledge from all those years. You couldn't get that. You couldn't pay for it anywhere else. I mean, that's the inspiring thing to me, is we get to see that not only the past and the history of the trade, but also the future.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, where are we at here? I'm sorry. Man, you're right. I would love to do this again. We'll have to. We're gonna have to put something together.
Yeah, and let's wait for some feedback and see if there were questions that we didn't get answered. If people will come back to us and let us know, we'll do another one of these. I can tell you one of the things that WFCA has gotten very passionate about, the Zoom conference, and we do one almost every week. And one I've challenged Robert to do is I want a Zoom conference on installers talking to retailers, what we wish they knew.
Oh, man.
And so we're going to be putting out a survey very soon asking installers what they would like for us to share on that conference. And then we're going to do a counter to that where the retailers are going to tell the installer what they wish they knew. The goal being, are the things that we can share with each other that would save money and save time.
Yeah.
So that we can make our lives easier for each other. And so be looking out. We'll be sending invites out and making everybody aware of that, but be looking for those two coming.
Oh, I love it. If anybody does have questions or wants to reach out, how can they get a hold of you, find you? What's that info?
Yeah, the best way to do that is through my email, shumphrey@wfca.org. And that is HUMPHREY, shumphrey@wfca.org.
Okay. Website's wfca.org.
Yes, wfca.org is the website. And CFI also has their website you can communicate through as well.
And if you give them a call, the sweetest lady with just the greatest Southern accent is going to answer the phone, and she's lovely.
Yeah, Kay is amazing. Yeah, she's been my assistant for years. I couldn't do it without her.
Awesome. All right, Scott, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me. And I will see if I can get any feedback. Sadly, I ask for feedback on all the episodes and I don't get a whole lot. It's this weird thing where if I make a post about, how do I install this product, all the guys respond. And if I put up a podcast giving them business information, I get no feedback. I don't get it. But
well, maybe we'll break the trend this time. But, hey, Kyle, thank you for what you're doing, buddy. I really appreciate it. And your passion is obvious. So keep it up. Any way I can help you, let me know.
All right, you got it. My pleasure. And I look forward to speaking with you in the future.
Talk to you again, my friend.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye. That's all the time we have for this week. To keep the conversation going, head on over to the Floor Academy Facebook group. Be sure to subscribe so you can hear each and every episode. We can be found on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and most major podcast directories. Don't forget to check out the show notes and click on the link for Stubby Tools. Remember, code LEARN will get you 10% off from Preferred Flooring, the exclusive distributor of Stubby Flooring Tools. Don't forget to leave a review and let us know what you think about the show. If you would like to be a guest, have questions or feedback, you can email us at flooracademypodcast@gmail.com. You can help support the show by becoming a patron over at www.patreon.com/flooracademy. Remember to learn while you earn.